I think my mother did exactly the right thing. I think it's absolutely extraordinary that any right-minded thinking parent should believe that would have been an alternative.
It's known that Princess Diana wrote a lot of letters. During the years she was famous, she wrote a lot of personal notes. Some were to charity workers, some were to close friends, and others were to her staff and people she trusted. Long after her death, some of these letters were made public. Some were included in histories, and others were sold at auction to raise money for charity. Not only is the amount of letters interesting, but so is the tone of them. Her letters, whether they were written during quiet family times or during the ups and downs of public life, show that she was sensitive, aware of the powerful organization around her, and observant. She was careful with what she said, but she always meant what she said. Not many of the letters that have been kept over the years were sent to members of the royal family. Diana liked to talk directly to people in her own family about things that affected them, and she was careful about what she wrote down, especially after she divorced Prince Charles in 1996. Even so, the letters we do have show us a side of Diana that was careful, strategic, and becoming more and more aware of her place in history. Letters she wrote to Paul Burrell, her maid and friend, are a famous example. She talked about her fears about the people and things around her and the future in them. Other letters she sent to charity leaders and friends showed that she was still doing good things for people, even though she was slowly taking a break from her royal tasks. These notes didn't directly talk about Princess Anne, but they do paint a picture of a woman who was very aware of the duties she would be leaving behind, especially when it came to her boys. The idea that Diana may have written a secret letter to Princess Anne is not true, and as of now, no such letter has been made public or proven to exist. But what can be looked at is how their friendship has changed over time, and how their paths have crossed over the years. By looking at these things, we can better understand what kind of letter it would be, if there was one. Diana joined the royal family in the summer of 1981, when she married Prince Charles in a wedding that was shown around the world on TV and was watched by more than 750 million people. She was going into a system based on custom, formality, and hierarchy when she was only 20 years old. Princess Anne, Charles's older sister, had been doing royal tasks for more than 10 years at that point. Anne didn't love being in the spotlight. She was known for how hard she worked and how straightforward she was. At the same time that Diana was becoming more well-known, Anne had already learned how to work quietly behind the scenes. The two women lived in the same hospital, but their emotional levels were light years apart. Diana was known for being kind and honest, while Anne liked to be tough and follow the rules. The people and the press saw them differently because of these differences. Diana quickly became a symbol of kindness around the world. She was snapped calming down patients, hugging kids, and telling the public about her problems. Anne, on the other hand, stayed firmly committed to her tasks and mostly avoided showing her feelings in public. Because of this difference, comparisons had to be made, even though neither woman asked for them. During the 1980s and early 1990s, there were rumors of trouble between them, but it was never officially proven. One example is when Prince William was born in 1982, there were rumors that Anne wanted to be his godmother. However, Lady Susan Hussey and other close friends of Diana were chosen instead. When Prince Harry was born in 1994, Diana chose godparents from her own group of close friends and family. There is no public record of Anne saying she didn't like it, but royal watchers noticed that Anne didn't go to Harry's naming because she had to attend another event. Moments like these, whether they were planned or just happened, made it seem like there was space between the two. Even though these ideas are popular, there is no solid evidence that Diana and Anne were hostile or in a direct conflict. Instead, they seem to have just kept their different ways of living and serving the royal family. Diana talked a lot about the stress she felt in the royal family, but Anne hardly ever talked about family issues. In spite of this, they both wanted to shape their parts in a way that felt true to who they were. Anne did this in a quiet way, continuing decades of public service work without any trouble. Diana changed the way people thought about the throne by adding humanity and vulnerability to a place that had been ruled by proper behavior for a long time. Diana started to stay away from traditional royal duties around the middle of the 1990s. She had officially split up with Charles in 1992 and later divorced him in 1996. During this time, she focused more on her work to help people in other countries, such as her fight against AIDS and landmines. Her diary got busier with more trips, talks, and thoughts about herself. She started writing more and sending letters to people she trusted or looked up to around this time. A woman coming to terms with her own weakness and the limits of her situation can be seen in these letters, many of which have since been published or saved. These events give the thought of Diana reaching out to Anne, whether through words or actions, more depth. Any proof of a private letter from Diana to Anne has not been found yet, but it is still possible that they wrote one in the last year of her life. The years before Diana's death in August 1997 were a time of change. She had lost her official title, but she was now on her own. She was no longer tied down by the royal press office, house staff, or rules. It was her own words, whether she spoke or wrote them. If she ever wrote to Anne, it might have been as a quiet way for her to make sure her kids would have a stable life. Even though they didn't get along, Anne had always been seen as one of the most reliable royal family members. Diana's life was full of ups and downs, but Anne had been there for her for decades. Maybe in those last few months, Diana saw something in Anne that other people hadn't. A sense of duty, a dedication to family, and the ability to help William and Harry find their way in the royal world that she had found so difficult to understand. This possibility has not been proven. But what is known about the history between these two women, their roles in the organization, and Diana's pattern of writing thoughtful, reflective letters helps us understand why such an exchange, if it did happen, would have been so important. By the beginning of 1997, Diana was no longer working as a part of the royal family, but she may have had more fame than ever. As part of her effort to ban landmines, she made the now famous trip to Angola at the start of the year with the help of the International Red Cross. One of the most important pictures in her life is of her going through a minefield while wearing protective gear. An enormous number of humanitarian groups praised the effort, but not everyone agreed with it. At the time, people in the British government didn't like that she was involved in what they saw as a political problem. Diana was in a unique and sometimes controversial situation because she was becoming less dependent on the royal family and more famous around the world. Diana was also becoming more worried about her own safety during this time, which is less well known but well recorded. In several private letters she sent in early 1997, she talked about how uneasy she felt about being followed or watched. In a letter to her butler Paul Burrell that was widely read, she said that she thought someone was going to mess with her car's brakes. These letters, which were made public years after she died, show how worried she was in her last few months. Some people laughed these worries off at the time, but they added to the story that Diana thought she was in danger, both from the media and from people she never named in public. Diana's letters from this time show that she was seriously involved in both public causes and private thought. The tone of her work changed a lot. Since then, her staff and close friends have noticed that she was writing more letters, sometimes with more important information. Even though they were still personal and from the heart, there was a sense that time was running out in the words. She often sent these letters to people she knew and trusted, like old co-workers, charity partners, and people she thought understood how much stress she was under. In these messages, Diana talked a lot about her boys. She was worried about how the notice she was getting from the media would affect William and Harry. As they grew up, she wanted them to feel like normal kids and have experiences outside of royal duties and family responsibilities. She often wrote about their school lives, personalities, and how she hoped they would be free to become who they were meant to be. In one letter that is known to exist, she said that she hoped her boys would never be prisoners of their position. This was a clear reference to the rigid structure that she herself found hard to accept. This need to protect, especially her boys, is a recurring theme in her last year. Diana had said for a long time that she thought the government needed to become more modern in order to stay alive. As the world became more media-driven and emotionally open, She talked about how the role of the royal family was changing in interviews and one-on-one chats. She thought that being honest, kind, and emotionally available were not threats to custom, but rather ways for things to get better over time. That belief showed in the way she lived as a princess. She hugged patients in hospitals, cried openly in interviews, and was honest about her mental health problems. With this information in mind, the idea that Diana may have talked to Princess Anne, maybe even in writing, seems more likely. Even though Anne was quiet and seemed mentally distant to many, she had always been one of the most loyal and responsible royal family members. People knew she was very loyal to her family and had never been in trouble with the law in her life. In her last few months, Diana may have seen these traits not only as admirable, but also as important, especially for her son's future. Even though there isn't a confirmed letter from Diana to Anne, it is known that Anne kept in touch with the Queen and took part in family talks about the roles of younger royals. After Diana died, Anne stayed involved with her family's life. She didn't say anything public about how William and Harry were raised, but she did her own job with control and steadiness. As late as the summer of 1997, Diana's diary was still full. She traveled a lot, worked on a number of charity projects, and started to develop a more private personal life. She was photographed on vacation with her boys in the summer and on her own in the Mediterranean. People who knew her well say she was still careful, even though she seemed less tense in public. She carefully watched who read her emails and was picky about who could read her private thoughts. The media, royal historians, and government investigations have all looked into the events that led up to her death in Paris on August 31, 1997, in great detail. She was killed in a car accident in a Paris tunnel, but people are still interested in what she was thinking, what she was afraid of, and how she communicated in her last months. As far as we can tell from the records we have, Diana spent those months carefully considering her will, her family, and the life she wanted for her boys. Her letters, whether they were sent to close staff or made public through charity records, show a woman who was trying to take back control of her story while being watched by many people. She was talking straight to him, without any middlemen, and it was getting clearer. She was a public person, a mother, and a woman caught between two worlds. Each note she wrote added to the picture of who she was. A lot of the time, what people don't know about Princess Diana and Princess Anne's friendship is more important than what was said. There aren't many straight quotes from either woman about the other, but over time people saw that they were clearly not close. Even though they weren't openly unfriendly, the way they behaved and the choices they made suggested they were never really close. To understand that distance, it helps to look at their different jobs in the royal family and how their personal styles affected how people inside and outside the family saw them. Before Diana became a princess, Princess Anne was already a well-known member of the royal family. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip had only one daughter, Anne. Anne was raised with a strong sense of duty. She worked hard for the general good from a very young age. As of the late 1970s, Anne had already done hundreds of events every year and had become very active in charity work, especially with Save the Children, where she became president in 1970. Her routine was full, she always had things to do, and she wasn't interested in media attention very often. She would rather work quietly than get praise from everyone. Diana, on the other hand, brought a whole new energy to the royal stage. She was only 20 years old when she married Prince Charles in 1981. When she became a member of the royal family, there was a huge amount of news coverage around the world. Diana quickly became the most photographed woman in the world. It was possible to record and study her style, her emotions, and even the tiniest movements. The press fell in love with her kindness and ability to show how she felt right away. Anne was known for being tough, but Diana showed real feeling when she was with the royal family. She hugged kids, cried in public at hospitals, and showed compassion in a way that the royalty had not usually shown before. Diana's attraction came from being able to connect with people on an emotional level. In many ways, this changed how people saw the royal family. But it also made a difference that might have made Anne look cooler to him. There is no public record of Anne criticizing Diana, But royal biographers and reporters often talked about Anne's visible detachment when the two of them were at events together. People didn't often see them standing next to each other, and when they did, their body language was often described as dull or stiff. Celebrating Diana's children's baptisms was one of the most talked about events that showed this split. When Prince William was born in 1982, a lot of people thought Princess Anne would be picked as his godmother. Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips, had Prince Charles as his godfather, so this would have been in line with royal custom. But Diana picked her own group of friends and staff, which was different from what was expected of her. Even when Prince Harry was born in 1984, the same choice was made. This time, Anne allegedly didn't go to the baptism because she had to go on a hunting trip at her country estate instead. Even though it was never officially called a snub, most people saw it as a sign of disapproval. Their disagreements went beyond personal issues. Anne stuck to the rules of proper royal behavior. She never complained, and she never gave an explanation. Even when things were hard, like when she and Captain Mark Phillips split up in 1992, she kept her private life very secret. Diana, on the other hand, talked in public about her problems with mental health and her marriage. The important interview she gave to BBC's Panorama in 1995, where she talked about bulimia, betrayal, and her feelings about the Queen, was a turning point. Some members of the royal family thought that being so open was bad for the institution, while others thought it was brave and honest. It's important to remember that even though they had different royal ways, both women were very dedicated to helping others. The media rarely paid as much attention to Anne's decades of service, but she was always one of the busiest royals each year in terms of activities. Diana's charm and public appearance made people all over the world more aware of problems like HIV/AIDS, homelessness, and the use of landmines in war zones. Their ways of doing things were different, but their dedication to work did not. Their paths became even more different as the years went by. Diana kept changing how people saw her after she split up and later got divorced. While this was going on, Anne kept up her quiet but steady royal presence. By the middle of the 1990s, both women had become well-known representations of different sides of the royalty. One was traditional and quiet, while the other was modern and emotional. Even though they disagree, there is no proof that they are personally hostile toward each other. A lot of what has been written comes from being able to observe, read body language, and make sense of what happened. Royal insiders have sometimes talked about how different their styles are, but there is no public record of a direct fight or private disagreement. There is a clear record of two royal women who used very different tools to get through the same school. Anne stood for consistency, skill, and proper royal behavior. Diana became a sign of being honest about your feelings, being open, and changing. Their bond, or lack of one, was probably shaped by their situations just as much as their personalities. This historical background is important when looking at the chance that Diana will ever write to Anne. There's no way Diana would have picked Anne at random. If she did write a letter, it wouldn't have been because they were close, but because she knew Anne would always be honest and loyal to the organization. In a world where Diana often felt alone or confused, Anne may have been someone she could trust, even if she wasn't warm. In the nearly 20 years before Diana's death in August 1997, she and Anne had dealt with the same family situation from different points of view. Whatever they were thinking that they didn't say was never made public. But their roles in the kingdom, which were very different in style but very similar in dedication, have left lasting marks on the institution they both served. The world was shocked when word came out early in the morning of August 31, 1997, that Princess Diana had died in a car accident in Paris. It was one of the saddest events in recent history. She was only 36 years old. After being chased by reporters, the car with Diana, Dodi Al-Fayed, and their driver in it crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. It was the crash that killed both Diana and Dodi. The event was talked about all over the world. Sad people met at Kensington Palace, and for days flowers covered the gates as a tribute. Right after the event, the royal family met criticism from the public that had never been seen before. The Queen, Prince Philip, Prince Charles and Princess Diana's two sons, were staying at Scotland's Balmoral Castle at the time of the accident. They decided to stay there so that William and Harry would not have to deal with the media during those first tough days. The people, on the other hand, became more and more angry as the monarchy stayed quiet. Reporters at newspapers asked why there were no half-mast flags over Buckingham Palace and why there had been no official report. During this time, Princess Anne stayed mostly out of the public eye. She had always been very strict about royal procedures and staying calm. She went to official events with her mother soon after Diana's death, but she didn't say anything in public, which is not like her. Anne had rarely talked about her family in public, and her silence during this time was typical of how she behaved as a queen. The queen finally spoke to the country on September 5th and called Diana an exceptional and gifted human being. The speech was seen as a turning point because it helped calm people down and started a time of national mourning. The next day, on September 6th, Diana's funeral took place. About 2.5 billion people around the world watched the show. Princess Anne and other members of the royal family walked in a sad procession behind her coffin as it went through London. In the years that followed, Princess Anne continued to do her royal tasks with the same level of dedication that had made her service stand out for decades. She continued to be one of the busiest royals year after year, often having more than 400 events every year. She never talked about Diana in public, but she was still a noticeable part of the family as her nephews William and Harry became adults. Some people thought that Anne's constant presence might have made the family feel more stable during a time of change. Even though she wasn't like a mother to William and Harry, she was part of the royal family that helped them as they grew up and took on more responsibility. Around the year 2000, both kings had started to make their way. William first wanted to be a soldier, but later he became a full-time working prince. Harry was also in the British Army and did 2 tours in Afghanistan. It became more and more clear that Diana still had a big impact on both of their lives. People often thought that William was calm, collected, and highly respectful of his mother's legacy when he was in public. A lot of people liked how his marriage to Catherine Middleton in 2011 mixed royal custom with personal warmth. Diana wanted the royal family to be like any other family, so they made sure their kids felt normal by sending them to regular schools, showing love in public, and letting them talk to the media freely. But Harry went in a different direction. In the year 2000, he and his wife, Meghan Markle, said they were leaving their royal tasks and moving to North America. The choice caused a huge stir in the media and a big debate in British society. A lot of people saw Harry's decision to leave as a clear echo of his mother's problems with royal expectations. In interviews after they left, Harry was honest about how he didn't feel protected at the institution and was afraid of getting the same treatment his mother had. Princess Anne never said anything in public about Harry's departure, but it was well known that she had a history of working with the press and keeping people's privacy safe. She had long said that her kids, Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall, shouldn't have royal titles. This would give them the freedom to build their own lives outside of the family. Some people thought that this decision, which was made decades ago, was forward-thinking, and it may have influenced the decisions that Harry and Meghan made later. The idea that Diana had that the monarchy needed to change seems to have stuck with people over the years, not just her boys, but also the institution as a whole. The royal family used to be very tied to custom, but over time they have started to change. More than other generations, Prince William and Princess Catherine have been open with the people. Even Princess Anne, who likes to keep things traditional, has backed efforts to streamline the government by cutting down on the number of working royals and focusing resources on a smaller group of people. As of 24, Princess Anne is still one of the most recognized members of the royal family. She is known for being dedicated and not putting up with a lot of drama. She has never talked about her connection with Diana or any private letters they sent each other, but the things she has done over the years show that she has always done what she was supposed to do and believed in supporting the crown from the inside. Her dedication to service and ability to change the way the royal family works have continued without any fuss. From what we can see now, the years after Diana's death were full of change. The institution that used to be against showing emotions slowly changed. partly because of public pressure and partly because of changes in the way people live their lives. Diana's boys went through that change in different ways, carrying on the traditions of both their mother and the monarchy. Whether she accepted her royal duty or didn't, both routes had her mark on them. What's left is the fact that Diana's influence lasted a long time after she died. Her desire for a more approachable monarchy can be seen in the choices her children have made, the small changes to royal protocol, and the love she still has from the people. Even though Princess Anne wasn't known for showing emotion, she has always played a strong role in keeping the family stable during this time of change. Even though Princess Diana has been gone for more than 20 years, her impact on the current British monarchy can still be seen in how it looks and how people feel about it. Diana's focus on emotional openness, relatability, and humanitarian work has had a lasting effect on everything from how royal events are run to how family members deal with the public and media. Even though her kids are adults now and have their own families and duties, they still carry on her legacy in very different ways. As Prince William, now the Prince of Wales and first in line to the throne, he has chosen a way to lead that is both traditional and open to everyone. After he married Catherine Middleton in 2001, there was a big cultural event for the royal family. Catherine was not from an elite family. She was a commoner and went to college. They were very careful with their relationship and public image, putting a high value on being relatable over being grand. The way they raised their three kids, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, also shows that they are more grounded. Diana has long pushed for these things to happen. They go to normal schools, do family activities outside, and are often photographed showing affection with their parents. William has also talked about his mother's impact, saying that many of the good things he does are inspired by her kindness and values. Heads Together, an organization that wants to get rid of the stigma surrounding mental health, got its start because Diana was ready to talk about her own problems. William often talks about how important it is to be kind, care for family, and serve others in public speeches and interviews with the media. These are ideals that Diana showed when she was Princess of Wales. Prince Harry, on the other hand, went in a different direction. His wife, Meghan Markle, and he revealed in 2020 that they were leaving their royal duties and moving to North America. The couple said that the media's interference and a lack of support from institutions were the main reasons. Harry, in particular, has said that the move was inspired by what happened to his mother. He is afraid that the past might happen again, especially when it comes to how the British press treated his wife. Harry has talked about his mental health, his time in the military, and the way his family works in interviews and films since he took a step back. Some of the things he said have been personal, emotional, and straight, just like Diana did when she spoke out. His autobiography, which came out in 1993, talks about his youth, his relationship with the press, and how the death of his mother changed the way he saw the world. Many people still have mixed feelings about Harry and Meghan's choice, but it is clear that Diana's influence had a big effect on how he felt about the institution and his desire for independence. In their own ways, both he and William have carried on their mother's work to make their own names, within or outside of the rules of royal life. Princess Anne has stayed in her job through all of these changes. She is known for being calm and disciplined, so she hasn't said anything public about what her brothers have done or said. On the other hand, she has continued to do a lot of formal duties every year. Over the course of several decades, she has worked with groups in health, sports, science, and education. Her style hasn't changed. She stays out of public trouble, does her job, and protects her privacy. In the bigger picture of the monarchy, Anne has backed moves to make the royal family more efficient. There have been fewer working royals over the past 10 years. This is partly because people's standards have changed, and they want the institution to be more modern and efficient. This method is similar to choices Anne has made in the past. She broke with custom by not giving her children royal titles. It was a quiet but meaningful choice that showed she knew how hard royal expectations can be. The royal family is going through a change right now. The kingdom is moving into a new era with the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2012 and the coronation of King Charles III. Public views on the organization are changing because of changes in society, differences in values between generations, and close attention from around the world. Diana's influence continues to serve as both a guide and a quiet push for change in this situation. People who care about the future of the Queen talk a lot about her values, which include empathy, openness, and a desire for deep connections. Princess Anne's part in this situation is still very important. Even though she doesn't like being the center of attention, her steady presence has been a relief to all the chaos and change going on around her. Even though Diana and Anne were very different types of royal women, they both left an indelible mark on the organization. One made people look at heart. The other person made things last behind the scenes. They left behind many things that still affect how the government works today.